There we go. All right, so I'm sure we'll have a few more people join, and we do record this, and we do have people who watch the recording after, and Josh sends the recording out to all the section leaders day of, day after, that kind of deal. So I think I know everyone, but I always want to make sure I introduce myself. I'm Rosa Miney, and I'm Director of Membership and Engagement, and this is our monthly section leader support call where we invite section leaders, but also section leaders who want to include other folks. It's always open to folks, so we send the agenda in advance in case you want to forward the meeting invite to people who might have an interest in the particular topics. So today we're going to talk about a number of things, but I think the theme here is kind of outreach and resources to do that outreach. So we're going to hear from Sharing Science and tell us a little bit about what they're doing, a quick update on travel grants, section spotlight. We're going to hear from Science and Society with Kripa, and EPSP with Kimberly to talk a little bit about outreach and communications and tools. And we've got a few folks from our communications team who are also going to help have a discussion and open mic. Of course, as always, we've got probably more content than we have time, and we only have an hour. So I'm going to ask my fellow presenters to forgive me in advance if I jump in and move things along. But you know, if you have questions, raise your hand, put things in the chat, and we'll try and get to you as we go along. I have a couple of really quick updates before I turn it over as well. You may recall in one of our past section leader support calls, we talked about financials, and we had some folks actually give us some examples of what they do. So the next set of financials, section financials, will be available in about 2 weeks' time. As usual, we post them, and then Josh will send you guys an email or put something in Connect saying, hey, go look at your information. But I also want to let you know that we heard you and got some really good suggestions for those of you who may have listened to that call in terms of some improvements and maybe some guidance. So we're going to start to do that. So you'll get a packet of information. It'll be your section financials and then a little bit of additional information. So when you get that, I would love to hear if you think there's some improvements there, if we've helped any in terms of what we're providing. So I just wanted to give you that heads up, and a lot of the stuff we're doing is based on your feedback. And then Greg, I think you've got a really quick reminder about AGU 23. Do you want to jump on real quick?
Yeah, just like to remind, just like to remind everybody who hasn't submitted a list of committee members and awardees who are going to receive comp registrations or comp event tickets to their student early career events. The deadline previously passed of July 22nd, but we have an internal deadline to the meetings team of August 3rd to submit that information to the meetings team. So if you could provide your spreadsheets of that information as soon as possible, we'd much appreciate it. If we don't get that information, there may be a danger of people registering without having comp tickets associated with their record, and we don't want to see that. So if you could provide that information as quickly as you can, if you haven't already done so, we'd very much appreciate it.
Thanks for that, Greg. So yeah, if you haven't done it yet, please make sure you provide your info. I'm sure you saw a bunch of communications from us via Josh. So why don't we go ahead and get started and go to the next slide. So Olivia and Shane, we're excited to have you talk about sharing science. And I know you've got a few slides. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks so much. And thanks, everyone. All right. Sorry, we have a little redundancy. So first, I just want to introduce the two of us. So Shane, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself first?
Sure. I'm Shane Hanlon in Sharing Science program with Olivia, PhD by training, conservation research, that type of thing, and then made the transition to the SciComm side of things a handful of years ago, now kind of specialize in storytelling and audio production and that side of things.
Great. And I'm Olivia Ambrogio, also a PhD biologist by training. I got my PhD studying the sex lives of marine snails, which I am happy to talk about with anyone at any time. So please feel free to reach out to me. Had a rather circuitous route into this field of SciComm, and then ended up at AGU helping develop and run the Sharing Science program. And so AGU Sharing Science program, it's bigger than Shane and me. It's bigger than all of us, really. Its real goal is to support scientists writ large in communicating effectively with a variety of different audiences, and in a way that's going to be meaningful and memorable, and ideally reciprocal as well. And there are so many reasons for doing science communication and so many reasons why AGU supports this and is committed to supporting this. One is career related. Certainly there's lots of research showing that activity on social media, for example, is a way to increase citations in one's own field. Obviously, it can increase dissemination. So if you're quoted in the Washington Post, for example, a lot more people are going to know about your study than those who have read the scientific journal paper. And of course, societal value as well. It's so critical to communicate science, right, to broader audiences. And that's often what we hear from scientists when we ask them why they are involved with communication or why it matters to them. They think it's a critical part of how science serves society. They want to inspire the next generation. They want people to see how valuable science can be and why it needs to be incorporated into decision-making. And they feel it helps them become better scientists because they then have to synthesize and provide meaning for their work, and the enthusiasm of others also feeds their enthusiasm. And other really great reasons for incorporating storytelling into science communication, which is a large part of what we help to provide skills for, is that neurologically we respond to that in a very different way and more profound way than most other kinds of communication. Storytelling also helps shift this perception of people who are scientists or have scientific tendencies as being sort of, if not cold people, then lukewarm. Because the more that you humanize and personalize science, the more that people feel that warmth and connection. And by hearing stories about all of the different kinds of people who engage in science, it helps both children and adults break down their own stereotypes about who they think is a scientist, that it's not just old white guys in lab coats. And finally, there's a lot of research showing that the more that we tell stories about science and how we got excited about science and what inspired us, the more that we build credibility and trust with other audiences and help people really become more receptive to the kinds of science messages that we want to give. And there are a lot of ways in which we in Sharing Science help to facilitate the science communication, and I'm going to let Shane talk about them. Shane, do you want to request remote control or you want me to advance for you?
You can just drive.
All right.
Yeah, so we have a bunch of different toolkits and guides and resources that we've been working on over the years. And for all of these toolkits, these are available on our Connect site. And for anyone who wants to take a look at them, Olivia put the link in the chat there, but it's not comprehensive. We have not covered everything. But we have been really fortunate to not only take from our own experiences, but to work with other folks within the organization to build upon or to be able to share their experiences and their expertise. So you see, for example, crafting your message for your policymakers. This is with our science policy colleagues here. And we've worked with our publications colleagues to do things about plain language summaries. And so again, we don't have everything, but there's a lot of stuff in there. And this is just a small example of some of those different toolkits out there. Next, please. And one thing that we've done on our Connect site is we've built this, what we call the virtual learning hub. And so for a couple years in a row, we did a really robust webinar series. One was on kind of general science communication. One was really focused on storytelling. And for each of these webinars, we created all these other resources beyond the webinar and beyond the recording, from animations with the whole webinar to really quick little segments we could pull out to entire infographics that would summarize the entire webinar. And so all of this information, from the toolkits to the illustrations, the animations, the actual recordings, all this is available on our Connect site at that link that Olivia shared. And in addition to a lot of these resources we just have out there on the web, we also have a really robust social media presence on Twitter as well. We do workshops. These are hands-on, virtual, or in-person workshops centered around a variety of different topics. And these are more intense and more deliberate and more personalized than just the kind of toolkits and guides we have out there, from working with our colleagues in our policy group to working with journalists and SciComm 101 and 201 and storytelling and all sorts of different topics, where we will go to or work with an institution to do anything from a couple hours to kind of multi-day courses, depending on the specifics of that organization. And so if this is something like you take a look at our resources and you are inspired, but potentially want a little bit more and want a little bit more personalized instruction, we really would love to work with you in a workshop. So we encourage you all to check that out as well.
And then another way in which we try to support scientists to engage in science communication is not just to provide those skills and resources, but to provide a sense of community and opportunities for action as well. And so we have this Voices for Science program that we co-run with the Science Policy and Government Relations group that people can apply for. And for 1 year, they basically commit to doing at least one outreach policy activity per month for a year. And they have launch and orientation workshop here in DC. And then we meet with them virtually every month in small groups so that they can get those that support and community. And there's a decent amount of representation due to staff capacity. We can only cover certain parts of the world, but people from a lot of the United States and some other areas in Canada and Europe have been part of this. And they've done so many amazing things. And what's been really gratifying is that we've heard people say, who've been part of this, that they would not have done these things if it weren't for AGU providing both the resources and also the legitimacy and the confidence that they had in doing the science communication. And I bring this up not so much to say, look how great we are as AGU, isn't that wonderful? But to say, if you or those you know might be interested in this program, I hope you'll consider it. The applications open December every year, and we're happy to talk more about that with you as well. And then I'll let Shane continue.
And I mentioned up top, a big part of my job in particular is around kind of audio storytelling. And so I am an executive producer, one of the co-hosts of our podcast, Third Pod from the Sun. If you haven't heard of it, please take a listen. We really try to pull back the curtain behind what's going on in scientists' lives. So our tagline, stories from scientists for everyone, and kind of just beyond methods and field work and that type of thing. And we really try to make sure it's not just audio, though. People learn and engage in many different ways. And so in addition to the 20-minute to 30-some-minute episodes we put out every week, it's a weekly thing, we also work with a couple really great illustrators to and also Olivia drew the cassowary one here, to really showcase what these folks are doing in a way that might grab a listener's attention who didn't really know that they were a listener yet. And kind of beyond the audio and the static, and these are not gonna none of these are gonna have audio. Olivia, if you wanna click one more time. We create behind the scenes stuff with my co-host and I, doing kind of the nuts and bolts of like what it is like to create a podcast and come in some of the silly outtakes and some of the introductions and that type of thing. We create these audiograms, which are these visual illustrations where there's audio underneath them. So it's audio, it's static images, it's video, it's audiograms, basically however you want to engage. We try to really facilitate that. And then one more, Olivia. And then we're also, we have our own playlist on the AGU YouTube channel. So if this is a thing you just like doing, you just like going to YouTube and throwing it on in the background, we're there as well. So again, it's an audio medium, but we try to engage in as many ways possible. And not only like hey, this is really great, you should listen to this, but we are always interested in new mini series. We run in these kind of 6-part mini series. So if you have an idea, a really interesting topic, shoot us a line. We're always working with folks within HEU staff, with external partners, with just scientists we're interested in talking to. We'd really love to hear from you. And with that, you can learn more at our website. We have a link tree, our sharing science, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you, Camilla, for the plug for available on Spotify and Apple. Camilla is our SCM rep we work with very closely. Yeah, and we hope you'll check out any or all of our, what we think are really great resources. So thanks all for the time.
All right, thanks so much, Shane and Olivia. This is really great information. If folks aren't paying attention, there's a lot of, paying attention to the chat, there's a lot of resources that were dropped into the chat. So I encourage you to go back in there and grab those, or we'll send you the recording and you can grab it there. But thank you so much, this is great stuff. Let's move to the next. All right, so Eric and Ricky, I think you've got a quick update on travel grant reviewers.
We do. Thanks so much. I'm Ricky Anderson. I'm program manager for student programs and grants here at AGU. And I just wanted to hop on and remind folks to send us your travel grant reviewers. If you haven't already, we'll need the names and emails of your section's reviewers by the end of July. And you can send those to my email, randerson@agu.org. Also, my colleague Eric Hinken will be adding in the chat the sections who have provided their reviewers. So if you don't see your section there, please send us your reviewers. Even if you're not planning to provide additional funds this year for travel grants, we still need reviewers from your section because we have applicants from all sections. Smaller sections should send us 3 to 5 reviewers. Larger sections will need 6 or more reviewers. And the review period will take place in late August or early September. So again, please send those names and emails to me by the end of July. This information is also in the Leadership Connect community, and we'll be sending an additional email with a reminder early next week. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat or email me. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ricky. All right, so why don't we go to Josh, who's going, it's our, I think everyone knows is he emails you a lot, but also for other reasons, our section support coordinator, who's gonna also remind you of some of the tools and resources we've got.
Hello, everyone. I just want to go over the list of outreach tools that we shared with you during our orientation call. I'm just going to go over them quickly to save us some time. We have our AGU Connect, which Rosa, I don't know if you had anything that you wanted to add for that, since you were the one to speak on that during the orientation call. Or no, I can go through, no worries. Then we have our surveys. If you'd like to submit a survey to collect information or poll your members, feel free to send me a document with all the questions, and then I can book for you. And then we also have letters. With our new summer hours, we ask that you have them submitted to us by Tuesday at 4 p.m. and then they will go out that following Monday. Not as many sections utilize newsletters, so we have some members from our communications team today that will go over those for you. And then we also have our microsites that are the section-specific websites where you can share content, communicate with important information, and recognize the work of your members. And then we also, some sections host webinars. If you'd like to use one of our platforms, we use GoToWebinars or Zoom. You can send me an email with some information, and I will send you back an intake form for you to fill out. And if it is an open webinar, we can put that on our AGU webinars page for that. And then we also have some important deadlines for you. So newsletters, I already went over that. Between Memorial Day to Labor Day, the newsletters are due Tuesday at 4 p.m. And then we will need the final draft that I shared with you approved by Thursday at 4 p.m. And then after the summer hours, we will go back to the Wednesday for to submit your due date, or to submit your newsletter, and then Friday to approve your newsletter. And then for section webinars, we ask that you reach out to us a month prior to your webinar date to allow us enough time to advertise for your events.
All right, thanks, Josh. And one thing I wanted to mention just very briefly about microsites. I hope everyone knows, particularly, I know that we've got new section leaders here with the election this past few months, that I hope folks are aware that each section has a microsite and it really needs to be updated. We have done an internal audit of the microsites just among staff to kind of take a look and see what's there, what's been updated, what's the engagement with those. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we continue to explore kind of online engagement opportunities. But I will say, if you haven't updated information in a while, to go take a look. I'm hoping that there's a webmaster that's kind of assigned to each site from each section. But you know, one of the things we found in our audit is that there's a lot of outdated information. There's stuff there from 2020, like on the honors program. There's some old deadline dates. You know, I would encourage you to actually link out to the honors web pages so you can go to the gold source as an example. There's some broken links, that kind of thing. So we're just kind of getting underneath finding all of those things. But I just wanted to give you a quick heads up that if you haven't kind of paid attention to your homepage or the even deeper pages underneath the tabs of your microsites, then maybe you can do that, and then we'll have more conversations in upcoming section leader calls about that. All right, so why don't we go to our next topic? So we've got folks from our communications team. We're going to talk to you about best practices and some other things that you all are working on. We've got Camilla and Natalie and Alana, so really looking forward to hearing them. And then after that, we are going to hear from a couple of sections in terms of what they're doing around newsletters and webinars. So a lot of stuff here in the next half hour. So whoever wants to start first from this team, I hand it over to you.
Yeah, we'll start Camilla and Natalie. Hi, everyone. I'm Camilla.
Hey, everyone. I'm Natalie.
And then we're from the marketing department at AGU. And today we'll be talking about what email marketing is and what it means to AGU. We'll be going over section email metrics, and we will also share best practices for your emails. So I'll pass it on to Natalie, and we'll start with the overview of email marketing.
Yeah, so very quickly, we wanted to start by going over what is email marketing, specifically what is email marketing at AGU, since section newsletters are a form of email marketing with us. At AGU, email marketing, or you can click the next slide, whoever's controlling. Yep. At AGU, email marketing is how we engage and connect with our members, really keeping them informed and sharing valuable opportunities with them. We want to really be focusing on connecting with our members in a way that they respond to. So the way that we track the success of the section newsletters that we do send out, we track specific email metrics. So I'm going to pass it back to Camilla, and you can go to the next slide to talk about the specific metrics that we track for the success of our email newsletters.
Yes, thanks, Natalie. So what are email metrics? Next slide. The email metrics are the key performance indicators, so mostly known as KPIs, and they'll tell you how many people are looking at your emails, how many people are opening them, and how many people are clicking through them. The main indicators are open and click rate. The open rate is the percentage of subscribers who open your email, and the click rate is the percentage of people who click on a link or an image within your email. So the open and click rate indicate the success of the email, meaning that if you are able to see that your open and click rates are high, that means that your subscribers are engaging with your email as well. Another important indicator that shows whether your email was delivered in someone's inbox is the delivery rate, and that will tell you whether the person received the email or if the email was bounced. And it's important to keep track of that because you obviously want to make sure that your members are receiving the emails as well. The next slide, please. So how does that connect with section newsletter email metrics? So now that we have gone over what email metrics are and what the indicators are, we can now look at the section newsletter email metrics and how they're currently performing. So we usually look at the average open and click rate within the industry. Our industry is nonprofit and science. The average open rate for those two industries are 25%, and the click rate is between 2 and 3%. And how we compare them with the section newsletter average, for 2023, the open rate for newsletters, for section newsletters is 52%, which is great. It's double from the industry average. And what does that mean? It means that the subject lines are resonating with your audience, and then you're also targeting the right people that are subscribing to your newsletters, and they're also interested in knowing what's happening in your section, and if you're promoting any events or any deadlines that they want to know about. For the click rate, for 2023, we have an average of 3%, which is on par with industry rate. And this is also very important to know because it's an opportunity to strengthen their relationship with your members by promoting engaging content and following email best practices, which Natalie will explain next in the next slide.
Thanks, Camilla. So to get these high open rates, delivery rates, click rates, we do have a couple best practices, some common trends that we see in the most successful section newsletters with AGU. So best practice number one is to have an engaging subject line that grabs the reader's attention. This is a very simple way to increase those open rates for your email. We typically recommend 5 to 10 words for that subject line and the same amount for the pre-header, which is what comes right after the subject line when you see that email pop up in your inbox. Best practice number two is to have clear and concise information. So when you're building your draft of your section newsletter, more text isn't necessarily better, but instead finding a way to get straight to the point with every part of your newsletter. This makes it much more easier for an audience member to engage with the email and retain their attention. So for best practice, we recommend 1 to 3 pages for a newsletter draft, and also keeping those paragraphs 5 sentences each at max. So that ensures that you're keeping your information clear and concise for both desktop readers and also mobile device readers. Best practice number 3 is to strategically use call to action, what we like to call CTAs. Keywords for call to action could be something like register here, learn more, join us for this conference, or sign up for this webinars. Though that's just a couple examples, but making sure that you're using call to actions in your text, and then also that you're hyperlinking those call to actions so that that drives your reader to go to the website that you're wanting them to go to. And that's also going to help increase your click rates for those metrics. Best practice number 4 is to be consistent, both with your newsletter structure and also with your frequency of send. Now, talking about that frequency, it is going to be different for every section. There's no right amount or right frequency that you should be sending out your newsletters, but you do want to pick a frequency that makes sense for your section, whether that's weekly, quarterly, biannually, etc. Picking a frequency that makes sense for your section so that readers know what to expect when they're getting your information. And then just a quick deadline shout out, like Josh mentioned earlier, the deadline to submit the newsletters to us, the SCM team, is 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesdays. This does ensure that we have enough time to build them and also send them back to you guys to approve them. Now, next slide real quick, we can talk about the structure of some of the most successful newsletters we see. A common theme that we see is dividing your section newsletters into parts. So you have a new part every time you change topics. We do recommend having a headline. This headline, we can put it in bold for you. And then having that clear and concise paragraph, no more than 5 sentences, hyperlinking the call to actions. And then if you do choose, having those engaging graphics or images. So in all 3 examples here on the screen, you see that common pattern of dividing your section into parts, having those call to actions hyperlinked, maybe having a graphic in there that's engaging. And again, this is just some examples. There is no right way to have a good structure for your section, but we do see high open rates and high click rates with this structure. So I'm going to pass it back to Camilla to talk a little bit about why some of these section newsletters have seen the highest metrics for us.
Thank you, Natalie. So here we have the open and click rate average in 2022 versus 2023. And as you can see, these are the same metrics that were shown in the newsletters in the previous slide. So we have EDU and EPSP as an example. We look at the frequency again. Some of them are sent monthly, some of them are sent quarterly. And we like to track the years. We like to track the open average. We like to track the click rate average to see if the metrics have increased or decreased throughout the years. And as you can see, the open rate and click rate has increased throughout the years, which is great to see. It has increased from between 2 to 3 points which is great. That means more engaged. And then we also wanted to show you, and we also compare it to AGU Weekly, which is one of our biggest newsletters. And as you can see, the open rate for AGU Weekly is 44%, and the average open rate for section newsletters is 50% and up, meaning that the section newsletters have a higher open rate. Same with the click rate. The section newsletters have a higher click rate than AGU Weekly. And that just shows you that your members are engaged with your newsletters, and it also helps you to know what kind of content they would like to see from you as well. And the next slide, please. And so why are newsletter best practices and metrics important? So by following the newsletter best practices, you'll get your section members interested in what you're promoting. So if you follow the subject line or pre-header best practices, let's say you pick a very engaging subject line or a pre-header, that will make somebody click on your email and open it. And by doing so, this will improve your open and click rates, and it will also be reflected in the numbers, and not only in the metrics, but in what the things that you're promoting, whether you're promoting an event or a webinar or some sort of deadline like the travel grants as well. So all of this is to get your section members engaged, interested in informing what you're doing. And now that you've learned about email metrics and about the best practices and a clear, concise content that you have to promote, we'll pass it on to Alana, and she will go over social media at AGU. Thank you.
Hello, thank you, Natalie and Camila. I'm going to be talking a little bit about social media at AGU. This is just an overview of what I'm going to be talking about with you today. So we're going to be talking about the current status of all of our accounts, best practices, how we use social media at AGU, and the next steps with the accounts. This is just a current standing for our flagship accounts. Right now we have a total reach of 310.2K. And that is our current standing of all of our accounts combined for the main account. We obviously have smaller accounts too, where our reach can grow and we can amplify some of those numbers. This is our best practices of how to make a good tweet. So every post needs to have a few of these key things: an engaging, relevant image, link for a reader to learn more, a few relevant hashtags, and add optional emojis. So I provided a template here in the middle where we can have a intro sentence or attention grabber, a few sentences in the center explaining a little bit more detail of what we're talking about, and a link. And I provided an example over here on our right of what I believe makes a good tweet. And just wanted to share our AGU 23 social media toolkit. That's a great tool to use, and I will definitely be dropping the link at the end of this so everyone will be able to access when you're posting on social media, the do's and don'ts. Next slide. So we use our social media accounts in many, many different ways. Here are a few. We share our presence at events, whether they're large or small. We try to promote what we're doing there, why we're there, who's there. We also use it as a great tool to promote AGU 23. A few months beforehand, we're going to start amplifying and sharing what we're going to be doing. Also, while we're there, we give a behind the scenes look at AGU 23. We live stream a few of our keynote speakers, and we also talk about it after. What did we do? Why did we do it? Why should you come next year? We also spotlight our AGU community. So us members, your section members, and we highlight their accomplishments as well. And that is along all of our platforms and especially on LinkedIn. We share your science on our social media accounts and do much more. So our next steps for our accounts, I would like to finalize a guidelines and best practices document where I can give more insight and tips on how to post, how to do a successful post on social media. I also want to begin a social media contributors group where I can create a social media calendar that everyone in that group would have access to. So we make sure that we don't compete with each other across all of our social media platforms. and we can give a big push when we have a big thing that we want to talk about, or a level 1 event, or anything that we want to collaborate with. We also want to make our accounts more effective. Instead of populating new, smaller accounts, we would like to make our existing accounts more effective and be just a little bit of a quality versus quantity mindset. Threads is the new social media account. We are kicking off the launch of our new social media account, Threads, with our new open science campaign. We're very judicious about where we put our resources into new platforms, and we have decided to launch Threads. And the way we're going to be doing that is we're going to be focusing on one subject at a time. So in the next few weeks, you'll see us launch it with the social media campaign of open science, and we'll be talking about that for a few months, and then we'll move on to a next subject. There'll be more to come on that soon. This is just so everyone can stay connected. These are all of our official accounts. If you don't already follow, please do. We are definitely trying to grow our following, and we would appreciate any amplification. And I just thank you all for your time. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the communications team. Really good information. And again, we're going to be sending you this information later. So you'll get more detail and can always come back and ask us more questions. So we want to hear from the sections and what you all are doing in the space of outreach. We're going to start with Kripa, with Science and Society, and then we'll also hear from EPSP. But without further ado, Kripa, why don't you get us started?
Thanks, Rosa, and hi, everyone. I'm the president-elect of the Science and Society section, and we have done a few of these extra added promotional marketing things. So I'm going to talk about the webinar series that we've had. Next slide, please, Rosa. So in last year, we actually, the genesis of having dialogues outside of the fall meeting came in because a lot of the Science and Society members particularly, and I think this might be true for some other sections, don't attend AGU and they don't think AGU is their home. Like we want to invite artists, science communicators, practitioner partners, community members, policymakers, as well as social scientists, historians, folks who often don't have AGU written as part of their funding plans. So our goal was to see what we can do in the without the fall meeting space in the interim of fall meeting to promote folks into AGU, into our section, so that they can see the Science and Society section as a home, and perhaps consider attending the fall meeting. So our goal with this series specifically was to host some of these casual conversations with experts, and these experts were within our track areas. So here you see some of the experts that we asked to come in and speak, and they basically just had a conversation about how their work relates to different topical areas. We had community and citizen science is one topical area, arts and science is another, science policy, social behavioral sciences, sort of just getting our science communications as well as one of our topical areas. So you see some of the experts that we invited to give very short talks, and then we had audience Q&A. So some of my really champion executive committee members are here, Ryan Myers and Dwight Owens, and they really helped put us together. It was, I would say, not a very heavy lift to do this, but a little bit of prior preparations and just having a set goal of why we want to do these webinars that is narrow and tangible. Next slide, please, Rosa. So last year we focused on the tracks, on just promoting what our section is all about, because we're a new section and we want other people to know what our section is about. This year we wanted to take it a little further and say, Science and Society section has a lot of the, topical areas that have justice, equity, diversity, inclusion angle. So we looked at, what specific topical areas are coming up in our community, and we're going to have these as some of our focal areas. These are still preliminary topics, we haven't finalized them, but we've taken some topical areas that have a JEDI cross connection, and we would be having experts and conversations on those. Next slide, Rosa. So how did we do this? It is easy, but it also requires champions. So at first, I think, somewhere in the spring or so, when AGU has died down, we decide, is there a theme? Is there, do we have a topical area that we want the larger community to participate in, and then, bring into the AGU? And some of the considerations we have is we want to improve our membership. We want to have dialogues on current issue. We want this to be a space where people can discuss some of these things. And we also want to highlight underrepresented voices. So we have a conversation about this in spring. And then we only do this if we can identify champions in our executive committee, other than the president-elect, who will take on some of these topics. And then what we do is connect with AGU staff on timing and logistical support. There are some forms we have to fill. So the champions within our, the people who want to take the lead on these conversations or webinars meet to refine the topic, identify speakers, and then they also meet very quickly with the speakers. These are all half-an-hour discussions, not like a big workshop kind of preparation. So they're short, but they're needed. And then we do some of the marketing, email marketing, newsletter marketing, and other channels. Particularly, this becomes slightly more difficult because we're trying to grow beyond AGU. So finding ways to send these out to people who don't read our newsletters has been a challenge. But we've tried to work with folks and do that. So that's a process. It takes somewhere between a couple of months to 3 months. It's been very, I would say the biggest benefit is that we've been able to reach out to a few people in other societies. So other professional societies that are related to our societies are places where we go to and say, hey, do you want to come to this webinar before you make a commitment to AGU as a potential section? So, it's been a very good way in which we can bring in voices, and it's also given us a space to bring in voices who cannot pay the $600-700 of fall meeting and might not be able to pay that money, for a long period of time. So I think that's it. That's all I have. Happy to answer questions, and thanks very much to the AGU staff for helping us do the logistics with these webinars.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Kripa. Why don't we have Kimberly talk a little bit, and then we can all kind of jump in with conversation, hopefully. Kimberly.
Okay, thanks, Rosa. And I found all this super interesting so far. I hope that I can provide some interesting stuff too. So can you, do I click on the slides? Oh yeah, great. Okay, so Rosa and Josh asked us to just talk about our newsletters and kind of the process that we went through. And I want to emphasize that Joel Scheingross has been a super big proponent of this and done a lot of the work, and I want to highlight it partly because he is an early career person, and he has a lot of other jobs to do just for himself, and so it's taken him time to do this. But on the other hand, I want to highlight this, that we have tried to streamline this process, and he has tried to streamline this process in a way that it makes it so someone from an early career can do this, and so this is these are some things that I wanted to emphasize, but Joel has really taken the lead to bring us back to a newsletter a month. And Suzanne and I have worked on commentary, adding content, but Joel has really been the one to push it forward. So when we talk about our newsletter, we talked about some of our goals for the year in our section. And I would say one of the main goals was to increase the sense of transparency among our community as to what else was going on. Why are certain people involved in leadership? What does it take to get involved in leadership. I mentioned EPSP activities, decisions around the December meeting for things about the EPSP group. I should also say things about awards. How do people get on committees to select awards, not just who gets awards? How do you get nominated for awards? So we wanted to use the newsletter as a way to get out that information. And also, we felt that it was maybe a lot of our members read our newsletter and don't necessarily have the time to read a lot of emails, and so maybe miss some of the great stuff going on at AGU. And so we wanted to use the newsletter as a way to increase the transparency of what was going on in AGU as well. And another, I would say, parallel thing is that it might seem like sort of the same, but it's a different sort of take on this, is that we wanted to encourage and increase a feeling of inclusivity in our community. And there's been a lot of push for that from our membership, especially after, sort of during COVID and during George Floyd. We still have this swelling of sort of need and interest in understanding what is going on, and why do we still look sort of not as diverse as we'd like to be. And so how do we change that? So can you click, Rosa? Thank you. So I put up a newsletter recipe for how we're doing these things that I just mentioned. So one of the things is that a few years ago, under a different president, we decided one person, and that is the elected secretary, would oversee the newsletter, and that would be their primary job. And that's Joel this year. And that just helps streamline a lot of things, because that person's going to decide on how it works best for them to get out the newsletter. We try to decide on a frequency and timing, just the elected officials, because we're the ones who really are we're sort of the face of EPSP right now. And at this point, we're trying to decide in November and December for the upcoming year, in time to kind of inform the community if there's going to be any changes. And that's something really new. So, we're hoping to keep that up. And then once we mostly decide, I would say we communicate that with a section executive committee in case there's anyone wanting to say more about how that should change to be more inclusive, how they should be involved, and also to communicate that we want them to contribute as much as possible to the newsletter as well, with things going on in their area that they're overseeing. Then we set up schedule and links ahead of time. So Joel sort of went ahead and said, I'm going to be expecting for each month, this is when I want inputs by. Here are the links for each month from now until December. And if you can click, Rosa, you can kind of see a little bit of what that looked like to us in just an email. There were just a bunch of months and a bunch of URLs. And if I had made that live, you could click and see what the format was. But instead, can you just click again, Rosa? I just put the format there of what it looks like. This is what it looks like, very plain and straightforward, but it sort of gives it sort of an open blank sheet for everybody to put in what they think they want the membership to know about for that particular month, what is timely, the awards, nominations, or whatever it is. And then there are reminders that Joel has been sending out about 10 days prior to our internal deadline, and then reminders for help in looking it over and getting edits and things like that. And then I would say that another thing we agreed on, but Joel was especially a proponent of, I would say that maybe he and I felt was really important, was to try to somehow include some of the great DEI activities going on in our own section and also in AGU. So the highlights in the newsletter always include something about that. And again, the last bullet is just reminders and requests for edits sent out during the week. If you could click again, Rosa, the last slide will have sort of a sample where this is what the July newsletter looked like before it went to AGU, at least the beginning of it. Again, just that same format with a fill-in of, you can see just the beginning of what we were filling in their fall meeting updates. If you can click again, then what you'll see is AGU tuning it up a little bit. And I don't know who was responsible for correcting us from the fall meeting updates to AGU 23 updates. Thank you, because so they're having their eyes on it as well. You see some different links for that. And then if you click again beyond the AGU updates, we had some AGU-wide updates where there's discussion about and this is where some of the inclusion, some of the making sure early career folks feel like they know how to get to feeling like they can be more than early career, like more senior folks eventually. You can see AGU Pride Month and some things that Lisa and some other folks gave for Pride Month in the context of AGU. And then one more click, and there's some things where we have this ongoing volunteer form on our website. So there's a link in that little paragraph, how to stay connected in other ways. So different links and things like that. So those are all different parts of our July newsletter. Not like very much devoid of pictures, but it also, July was a super busy time for all of us, a lot of travel for research and other things. So and so we just decided to put a priority on making sure we got regular outputs to inform the community that way. And that's all that I had to say. I just wanted to give a short and sweet, hopefully sweet overview of what we did and why.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that from both of you. And open mic. So why don't we take down the slide? We can kind of see each other. And wondering if other folks have any, especially on the section side, have any comments or questions around what they do in terms of outreach. Are you all doing newsletters? Do you have any questions for Kimberly and Kripa? I know that Science and Society also has a newsletter, so I'm going to open it up there. Any comments?
I like the idea of a webinar, and I guess we try to do that, and I'm no good at it. Or at least for my first try, I'm no good at it. So who do we talk to if we want more help for an AGU, or should we reach out to someone who's already doing it, like in Science and Society?
I mean, I think you guys can certainly reach out to each other. You can also always reach out to Josh McKee, who can get you in touch with folks in our SCM team as well. I think can probably give some additional, maybe specific one-on-one kind of background or feedback based on what you're looking to. Yeah. John,
Thanks.
you've got your, yeah, absolutely. And John, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just on the newsletter front, a couple of things we've been doing is that we have each month of some standing sections. And so we have like the fellow speak. So each of our fellows, and then we have each of our technical sections. So we have 12 technical committees, and they each have once a month get to put something in. And then we have our sister organizations. And so in hydrology, there's a whole slew of sister organizations that we're trying to get things coordinated. So we're inviting them to write a monthly piece. And that really then creates the backbone of something that people really know what they're going to get each month. And that's been working out really well.
That's great. Thank you, John, for that really good feedback. Martha.
Yeah, thanks. Actually, my point is not really about the newsletters. I mean, we do a few newsletters and like 3 or 4 newsletters a year. And I'm really pleased to see this help on what you're expecting from them and what helps them. So that'll be great. But I was also wondering, since this is open mic, I was just wondering, our section was wondering about the every year it's getting more difficult to pay for the student activities that they want. And we've got this $5,000 that we're getting. Now AGU has raised their rates. And I'm wondering if any of that is going to be put into more support for student activities.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think we're gonna have to come back to you on that. But I do understand the question and where it's coming from. I don't know if others have any feedback around that, but we can certainly check back.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Martha. Anyone else? All right. Well, we may have a couple of minutes left here. I can let you go early, but as usual, I'm making my usual pitch for please let me know what topics you want to hear next time. It looks like Caregiver Awards is one of them, so I've seen that in the chat loud and clear. And also, I'll probably be asking you to give me feedback on what you think of the section financials package that we provide in a few weeks to see if we're getting that right. Any other thoughts on ideas while we have a couple of minutes here that what you'd like to hear about next or talk to each other about next?
Definitely think broadening that question of the registration fees and implications would be nice, Rosa. I understand why it was, and we all saw the work and the hybrid that made it, and there's pros and cons, but I wonder whether that's a good monthly leadership discussion on what that really means for sections going forward.
Okay. Yeah, I can take that back, and you're right. I mean, maybe it's discussed here, maybe it's in the leadership call, but yeah, definitely I'll pass that. Kimberly.
I'd like to say a +1 for the previous point, because we're again, membership is trying to understand where that's coming from, and understands the issues of moral support for the morality of supporting a diverse population attending the meetings. But when our own like early career folks maybe can't afford it, that's hard, and they want to understand it. And actually, I was going to suggest something. So on a different topic, I was going to suggest something in one of the next couple meetings as we're getting ready for the fall meeting, which I feel like is the last quarterly thing, to understand. It'd be neat to see what other sections do during the fall meeting that we don't necessarily see obviously on the program, but maybe how do they make use of pods and other ways of networking at the meeting to support folks beyond the venues that are more obvious.
Yeah, I think that's a great topic, and I'm going to call out Deb for a second to make sure you heard that that maybe we can do that for next time and provide a little bit more feedback on that.
Real quick.
Yep, absolutely.
Since
Thanks, Deb.
Moment,
Yep.
Hydrology section is trying to put together some educational video materials and some memorial materials for people who are passing, and a bunch of other initiatives. If anyone wants to talk about that on kind of the kind of a section level about how to put out educational materials in the video format and how to commemorate those who have passed, I'd be really delighted to have a conversation with other leaders directly. The conversation with the HU have been very productive, but I'd love to hear what other people are doing and maybe share some of what we're learning.
Thanks, Don. Yeah, this is, that's another purpose of this meeting, right? Is to have sections talk to sections here or outside of here and make sure you're connecting and getting what you need. So, and learning from each other. So I think we're at the top of the hour again. So we've had an hour's gone by. So I'm going to let you guys go, but look forward to seeing you, hearing from you. And like I always say, we so appreciate at AGU your volunteer leadership and really learn a lot from you. And we want to really make more space for you all to learn from each other. So help us help you do that. And this is one of those places. So with that, I'm going to say bye and let us know what you need. Take care.